right, Shabbat Shalom, good morning.
Hello.
Turn this over. We're not using it yet.
Yeah, it's
Don't
okay.
look at it yet. Turn it over.
That's the part I looked at. I haven't looked at this part.
Oh, yeah, I mean, don't even look at the back. That's okay, you go. All right, good morning.
You're
Good
right in
Shabbos.
advance.
What?
What if I read it in advance?
Then you can. What?
Then wait until we get to what we're talking, you want to talk about.
And you can use the class, it's fine. I would take, we can co-teach you. That is. Okay.
We can learn together.
Shabbos,
It's
good morning. If you don't know and been following, the book of Exodus is divided into either 2 or 3 sections, depending on how you count it. I'm using a book.
Let's see.
So unless you know if I,
Let me see.
yeah.
Sinai, and Mishkan.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't say pre-Sinai, I would say Exodus.
Okay.
Right, the entire Exodus story is encapsulated in the first 16, 17 chapters of Exodus. Right, chapter 18, they are at Sinai. So it's Parshat Yitro and Mishpatim are Sinai and the first set of the expansion of the laws of Sinai from Mishpatim, which we read last week. And now we are in part 3, which begins the final 5 parshiot of Shmot of Exodus, beginning with Truma, Tetzaveh, Kitisa, Vayakel, and then Pikude to end it. And these are all around the Mishkan. Up until now, we actually haven't heard about the Mishkan, right? This is actually a new conception. And that's what I wanted to sort of talk about today. And then depending how much time we have, we'll see how we get into it and this interesting midrash, which I found, which we'll go through together. Those who read it before, you can help me. So with that,
I want to read a bit.
we're on page 485 in the Eitz Chaim Chumash, Exodus 25, verse 1, Parshat Truma. I want to read the first few pages in English for us, just the opening of Truma. Reader? All right, go for it.
The Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "Tell the Israelite people to bring me gifts. You shall accept gifts for me from every person whose heart so moves him. And these are the gifts that you shall accept from them: gold, silver, and copper, blue, purple, and crimson yarns, fine linen, goat's hairs, and ram skins, dolphin skins, and acacia wood, oil for lighting spices, for the anointing oil, and for the aromatic incense, lapis lazuli, and other stones for setting, for the ephod, and for the breastplate. And let them make me a sanctuary, that I may dwell among them, exactly as I show you, the pattern of the tabernacle and the pattern of all its furnishings, so shall you make it."
Okay, we're going to pause here for a second. Yeah, Sheila?
They were in the desert.
Right, this is always that big question, like, where do they have all the materials? They're in the desert.
With them.
I mean, how much did they schlep with that? How much did
They
they?
certainly
take with that?
schlepped some stuff from Egypt because
Yeah.
that they borrowed or whatever.
They borrowed, they pillaged, they whatever, they took in return for 400 years of slavery. They took the value of their time, like, well, yeah, however you understand it, right? They did go into the Egyptians' houses and take some stuff. Yeah, they may have had their own stuff, right? So actually, scholars say that all this stuff existed in Egypt before or existed in Canaan, except for acacia trees. That's the only thing that did not grow in Egypt, but acacia trees grew in the Sinai. So it's interesting, right? So that's where they are constructing it. Yeah.
Some midrash or podcast or something I read this week
Yeah.
said something about this whole thing about the things that went into the Mishkan was all midrash. They couldn't possibly have had it. They weren't dragging it around.
I don't know. Well,
Have a hard
it
time.
makes, can I just say something? It makes sense to me because what they took from the Egyptians they took as, right, repayment or whatever else. But it's interesting that if we're postulating that they got these sort of most precious things from the Egyptians, they probably didn't have it in slavery, right? That what is happening to them? They are then dedicating it for a holy purpose, right? They're not keeping it, right? They're not keeping it for their own. They're dedicating it for a holy purpose, right? To God, right? As a gift of thanks for saving them.
Except,
And-
except for one thing, they
Yes.
used it for the golden calf.
Well, well, yeah, we're not there yet. Give us another two partial, yeah. Yeah, I mean, they don't always do the right thing, yeah.
This might be leading us astray, so to speak, but we were talking about this. What's the origin of translating whatever more or less untranslatable Hebrew word into dolphin skin?
Yes, the old dolphin skin story. And so I found this resource that I really like that we're gonna read from the Torah.com. They actually have an article. I didn't read their article on the dolphin skins, but they have an article on the dolphin skins. I gotta look.
Maybe I'll look it
I
up.
gotta look at the comment here, but I'll give you the things, right? Scott Sheen, by the way, the note in our Chumash says dyed sheep or goat leather, likely. So I don't know why they're translating it in the top as dolphin skins, and then they're saying here that it is goat leather, right? So there is a modern Midrashic writer, Rabbi Mark Angel, who writes some great books, including, he wrote a book called Does God Have a Big Toe? Which is a collection of, Does God Have a Big Toe? Which is a collection of short stories for children, which are midrashim. And there he writes this midrash, which you probably, when I say it, you're gonna hear it because I often work, when I'm working with B'nai Mitzvah students around this question, and they always quote it. So the midrash is this, that when the Israelites made their way through the split sea, right? And the seabed was dry and there was walls of water. If you remember, we studied that, right? There were literally walls of water. Not everyone walks in a straight line. Not everyone walks well. So either the children or people who have mobility issues were going into the water or falling into the water. Now, if you fell into the water, what would happen to you? You would drown, right? So what Rabbi Angel writes in this midrash is that dolphins would patrol the sides of the split walls, going back and forth and back and forth. And when a Jew was in trouble, was about to fall in, starting to fall in, they would nudge it with their nose or their side or their tail, and they would recenter, right, and put on the right track the Israelites, the children or the whatever that would have wandered into the water, the elderly that would have fallen. And then, that's like part one. And then, if you know anything about seashores and stuff, the seabed is much lower than the actual shoreline. Right? You know that, right? I mean, it goes down, but it's like it's a pretty steep thing usually, right? Right, depending on where you are. So when the Sea of Reeds split, right, the shoreline was much higher than the seabed, which was dry. It's easier to go down, but it's much harder to come up. Many of those immobile couldn't get out of the seabed as the walls of water were coming down and crashing on the Egyptian chariots and the warriors and Pharaoh, right? So what happened? The dolphins, you know how dolphins jump? The dolphins propelled themselves, jumping out, pushing the elderly, immobile Israelites onto the land so that they would survive. But the dolphins were beached. And I guess nobody thought to throw them back in the water. They died on the beach, sacrificing themselves to save the Israelites. And in return, if this is such return, in return, the Israelites used their skins in their most holy place, but on the Mishkan, in the sanctuary. So what's the other potential reason? Even though it doesn't rain a lot in the desert, it does rain in the desert, correct? Right? Dolphin skins are waterproof. Right? I mean,
Yes.
I think so. I haven't like done the science, but right? Dolphin skins are waterproof, so it makes sense that the exterior walls of the Mishkan, right, that were exposed to the elements would be from a pretty, strong waterproof, whatever surface.
Yeah.
I don't know. But we don't, but the short story is nobody really knows.
We should send them down to Rio Grande.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know if you like the Midrash. If you're interested, you can look up, does God, I know, Ron doesn't like that one.
No.
Does God have a big toe? Yeah, but it's fine, it's cute anyway. Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting Midrash, right?
Yeah,
Do the kids believe it?
no, kids are very
Gullible.
gullible and some of them are very sharp.
How do you know? How do you know Hashem didn't do this? Hashem,
One thing.
I mean,
For one-
if Aquaman could command fish and dolphins to do things, why couldn't Hashem? Okay, sorry.
So that's my knowledge. Moving in.
There are no dolphins living in the Sea of Reeds. I don't know. I haven't been there. I can't tell you. I have seen dolphins though, jumping
Yeah.
in the Atlantic Ocean. And
Formerly SeaWorld.
yes, in SeaWorld. Yeah, okay, I do actually want to get to the other stuff, but yeah, other questions on there, like this, I wasn't the thing I was interested in. Yeah, obviously, what was read was one of the most famous lines in the entire Torah. The Asuli Mikdash v'Shachanti betocham. Make for me a sanctuary that I may dwell among. What? Them, right? There's this whole, could spend an hour on why it's them and you and this whole thing, right? It's beautiful, but yeah, we're not going to do it here. But interestingly here, right? The sanctuary, which we call the Mishkan, here is called Mikdash, which is a synonym. Mishkan means dwelling place. Mikdash means holy place. So obviously, our dwelling place for God is a holy place, and that's why it's called Beit HaMikdash, the temple. That's the formal Hebrew name of it, right? And here, make for me a Mikdash. Okay. Keep reading.
Oh, okay. They shall make an ark of acacia wood, 2.5 cubits long, 1.5 cubits wide, and 1.5 cubits high. Overlay it with pure gold, overlay it inside and out, and make upon it a gold molding round about. Cast 4 gold wings for it to be attached to its 4 feet, 2 wings on one side of its walls and 2 on the other. Make poles of acacia wood and overlay them with gold. And insert the poles into the wings on the side walls of the ark for carrying the ark. Poles shall remain in the wings of the ark. They shall not be removed from it. Deposit in the ark the tablets of the pact which I will give you. You shall make a cover of pure gold, 2.5 cubits long and 1.5 cubits wide. Make
Okay, we're gonna pause here. Stop here. So what are we reading about now?
the actual ark.
The Ark of the Covenant, right, which is called, what's the Hebrew word for it here? What's the Hebrew word? Look back at verse 10. Yeah, what?
Aron.
No, I mean, that's what we call it later, but here,
It says Aron right here.
it just says Aron. What is an Aron?
Closet.
I'll say chest. It's a chest, right?
And that's all.
Now we use it for, now it's used as a closet in modern Hebrew, right? And that's what our ark looks like today, not necessarily what it looked like in the oldest ancient
I'm
synagogues.
looking at the cubits here. I mean, it was really pretty small.
Pretty small, so one of my
this is
new-
twice the size.
yeah, one of my new
of the-
favorite books, and sorry, those online and the table, because it's really far and I photocopied enough that I didn't want to like photocopy a million things. This is a new Koran Tanakh of
Yeah.
the land of Israel. It's actually Sax's translation and then commentaries on it. But this is mostly based on archaeology. You can see this picture. This is an ancient Egyptian aron. It's a chest. It was very common throughout the ancient Near East at the same time as we're reading now, that there were chests used for things, holy chests. In fact, we already heard the word aron used in the Torah. When did we hear it used? The bones of Yosef were put in a aron. Right? So we already heard about a chest. So there are definitely burial chests. And if you've ever been to a museum, have you seen sarcophagi or different type of burial chests that have a base and then have a lid? What did we just read about? Right? A base and a lid. And oftentimes they are always made of, or not always, but they're usually made of wood. And if it's something really special, what happens to the wood? It's covered with gold, right? And by the way, guess what? That did that in Egypt, right? And of course, all of this stems from Egypt because that's where Joseph was embalmed and entombed, right? Until they could make their way out of Egypt. And, right, if you know what we're going to say, and other times too, is right. This is directly what we're reading now is directly after spending 400 years in Egypt. Maybe beginning, okay, but then ending in slavery. But this is their knowledge, right? So it's not going to be surprising that much of the architecture and the furniture design and everything else is similar to Egyptian, right? And when we start looking at the pyramids and the burial tombs of Egyptian pharaohs and royalty and nobility, guess what we're going to find? Very similar things to the Mishkan. And for all the furnishings of the Mishkan, including, we didn't read about it yet, but we'll read about there was a table in which their showbreads were put on, right? Whatever showbreads means, right? Does anyone know what showbreads are?
Not vaguely from what we've studied.
There are 12 breads put on which were chalot, basically challahs, that were made on Friday.
Wouldn't they have been matzah though?
No, they were made, there's actually an
They're
entire
Not
thing.
unleavened?
They're leavened, yeah. They are leavened, and if you read in the talk, I didn't there was way too much stuff to bring. There's a whole thing on the showbreads because there is one family that had the recipe and had the ability to make it while the temple was in service, the Gamru family. And they had a little bit of a monopoly. They were actually paid a lot to make 12 breads once a week. But the 12 breads that they made remained fresh the entire week. They put it out, they baked it on Friday, they put it out on Friday. It stayed until they did it next Friday. They were paid for 1 day of work. It was all done on Friday. And then Friday night, guess what happened to those day old breads?
They went to the Kohen.
They went to the Kohen. The Kohen ate loaves of bread on Friday night. Interesting, right? We don't really talk about that with challah, right? But it's very interesting, right? And if you read, there's this whole Talmudic story about they had the recipe, they had the way to do it, and they actually put it into a mold, and it was a funky way. It was baked from the inside to the out, and nobody really understands what it means. But at some point, the rabbis said, or whoever was in charge of determining who was going to do it, that the Gamru family was charging too much. They were paid too much. So guess what they did? They tried a competitor baker, and guess what? Their breads
Didn't work out.
didn't work out. They looked like they looked right. But within 1 day, they got moldy and stale or whatever. They tried it a couple times and it never happened. Yeah, sounds like manna, right? But then they went back to the Gamru family. They probably got a raise too. I don't know. Yeah, it doesn't say something. But if you're interested, just Google. It's a really interesting section of the Talmud.
It's in the Talmud.
It's in Menachah, yeah.
There are a lot of Talmudic stories of one kind of corruption or another in Second Temple times.
Yeah, yeah, but I was saying that because. Yeah. Maybe I can't find it here, but guess what? In one of the pyramids or burial things that they found in Egypt, guess what was there? A table that had bread on it, right? Like surprise, right? So that's what we're going to do. So it is very traditional in the ancient Near East that treaties were placed in holy places in a container. Ancient Near Eastern treaties often stipulated that copies of the text be deposited in a temple sanctuary. This allowed the gods listed in the treaty to bear witness to the accords and also meant that the treaty could be extracted easily so that it could be recited aloud at regular intervals, right? What is in our Aron that we're describing here?
The Torah.
Not the Torah, the
Commandments.
10 Commandments, right? Right? Our treaty, our breach that was made with God.
Both the
Right.
broken tablets
Both
and
the broken, right?
tablets.
Yes, right. So
That's
here's an
it.
example. This isn't an ark, but it's a jug that was put in a sacred place. If you can see, it's very tiny, but there are these broken pieces of, I guess it was a tablet. Right? This was 14th century BCE, a treaty from Hatti and Matani.
It's
I
about
don't
the
know.
same period of time, isn't it?
Exactly right. That's why I said it, right? That's exactly around the same exact period of time, maybe a little earlier, a little later, right?
As Rabbi Latovsky says, we borrow things that we're familiar with, but then put them
Yep.
to a new and different purpose.
And here we go. Also in keeping with ancient Near Eastern tradition, when Moses creates a second set of tablets after smashing the first, in ancient Near Eastern tradition, if a treaty text is lost, stolen, or destroyed, duplicate copies of the text are made and put in the sacred site. All right, I rest my case. No, no. Yeah, so what I wanted to say is this idea of an aron, of a chest, right, is not unique to us. And in fact, here, I'll read this one. The ark described here could be more accurately called a chest. The Hebrew term for aron is used elsewhere. It's also called a public donation box for the temple in the courtyard was an aron. Archaeologists have found stone burial caskets, small ivory lit boxes featuring inscriptions with the word aron on it. Because Egypt's climate allows wood to be preserved for thousands of years, many boxes from ancient Egypt have survived. From the tomb of Pharaoh Tutankhamun, a well-preserved complex of underground chambers, archaeologists found 50 arons. Examples of other Egyptian objects similar to chests that display tiles and cabinet making used in the ark include coffins, chests. Okay.
What's the plural of Aron?
Aronot.
Aronot?
There you go. Whatever Helena says.
But it's masculine, right? Because it's our own goddess.
Yeah, but it's some
There
sometimes
are
masculine.
irregulars.
Sometimes masculine is feminine. Yeah.
To try to get us to try to memorize the irregulars, so we.
The Egyptians put stuff in it because they believe in the afterlife, then they could access, they put money and jewelry and all those other things. They also put organs and other things. Yeah. Oh, yeah? Okay, they could open the border. That's probably more important. Sorry, said they should open the border. That's another story. Okay. Keep reading. Yeah, I didn't mean to get political.
In the Gaza border, we all know why CC doesn't want to, so
Yes. Yes, okay. Sorry, I got political. I waxed
the
political.
last thing he needs, their board of Muslim Brotherhood people out for his throat.
You're being political.
Make 2 cherubim of gold. Make them of
Yeah, keep going.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm just making,
Make them of hammered
Explanatory.
wood at the ends of the cover. Make 1 cherub at one end and the other cherub at the other end. Of one piece with the cover shall you make the cherubim at its 2 ends. The cherubim shall have their wings spread out above, shielding the cover with their wings. They shall confront each other, the faces of the cherubim being turned toward the cover. Place the cover on top of the ark after depositing inside the ark the pact that I will give you. There I will meet with you, and I will impart to you from above the cover, from between the 2 cherubim that are on top of the ark of the pact, all that I will command you concerning the Israelite people.
okay, we're gonna talk about this later if there's time, because if you saw, there were 2 articles trying to figure out what cherubim, cherubs actually are. But I want to get to the other thing that I'm going to do. But just since I'm here on the page, those in person may be able to see. I'll actually walk it through. Sorry, those online you can't see, but this is a picture of something also from King Tut. That was a chest that has a
I'm sorry?
animal on top of it, right?
An animal or?
With ears that look like wings at
Oh,
least, right?
maybe. Was it one animal or a pair?
This one is just that, but I will get to, when we get to talking about it, I will tell you that Ramses II, who might be familiar to you, Ramses II was always pictured with two falcons with their wings over him. Two falcons with their wings over him. Sounds a little bit like our own, but we'll get there if there's time. Okay, we'll get there if there's time. I want to get to the other thing. All right, keep going.
You shall make a table of acacia wood, 2 cubits long, 1 cubit wide, and 1.5 cubits high. Overlay it with pure gold and make a gold molding around it. Make a rim of a hand's breadth around it and make a gold molding for its rim round about. Make 4 gold wings for it and attach the wings to the 4 corners and its 4 legs. The wings shall be next to the rim as holders for poles to carry the table. Make the poles of acacia wood and overlay them with gold. By these the table shall be carried. Make its bowls, ladles, jars, and jugs with which to offer libations. Make them of pure gold. And on the table you shall set the bread of the display to be before me always. You shall make a lampstand of pure gold. The lampstand shall be made of hammered work. Its base and its shaft, its cups, houses, and petals shall be of one piece.
I'm gonna pause you here. Now we're gonna get to the menorah. So, right, we're now learning about the furnishings, right? We do the outside and the inside, right? This is interior design and architecture, right? And by the way, again, I'm just gonna briefly mention, I've actually taught this before, which was, if you know, Ramses, Pharaoh, Egyptian king, his military tent is the exact same shape, dimensions, and structure as the Holy Temple, right? I've taught it before, but I'll show you just if you want to look. I'll walk you through. Those online, sorry. If you look at the Torah.com and just look up Parshat Truma, you can see there's 4 articles about it. This is Ramses' camp. This is the Mishkan, and this is the Beit HaMikdash. The same exact shape and dimensions.
It's interesting that there's something so elaborate being made.
Right, the exact same shape and dimensions. Right? And there's an interior holy space. Right, where Pharaoh would reside.
You mean the Holy of Holies?
Oh, right, exactly where the Kodesh HaKodashim was. Okay, so we have, let's say half an hour. We have 2 options of what to study. We'll put this up to a vote. We can do my really interesting thing about a Sefer Torah, which you may have read and you got it already. Or we can talk about what a cherub is, or if there's time, we can do both. I'm just not sure there's time.
Cherubs.
Cherub, everybody wants the cherubs. Okay, then I'll give you the 3.
The other.
I'll give you how about I do the 4-minute version of the Vav?
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, 4-minute version of Vav, and then we'll do 25 minutes on cherub. Okay, so that's what I handed out to you. All right, it's probably gonna be 5 or 6 or 10 minutes, but we'll have enough time for cherubs. I'll go really fast. So
You didn't bring a Torah with you this
I
time.
didn't bring a Torah, right, because there's photocopies here. It's still tiny. This is if you're online, this is from the article called Scribing the Tabernacle by Rabbi David Moster, a visual midrash. Okay, so you may have heard, we've talked about it before, that there's such a thing called a Vav Torah. A Vav Torah means that almost every column begins with Vav. This is a modern invention. If you remember when we took out our Holocaust Torah, that's more than 500 years old, it is not a Vav Torah. Different, right? Every column was different. And some of them started with Vav and some started with any other letter, or just where the sofer got to, where the scribe got to when they were going to the next column. Our Torahs are all now standardized. You copy one Torah from another when they're writing, and as I said, Every column begins with vav except for 5 in the entire Torah. The Torah has approximately 248 columns. I think now it's standard, 248 columns. Okay, and you can see that's an example, all the vavs that are on the top of this.
Now, when
Okay.
you say vavs, does that mean every column begins, or every sentence begins with and?
Yes, because, right, so we've always said the reason why was because a vav is a prefix meaning and that way the Torah is continuous. Every column of the Torah is connected to the previous one, so it's and. The story never ends. The Torah continues, right? Even when we stop, we're still not done. And it goes. So that's sort of our general reason, and that's our nice thing. So this is a little different.
I have a question about the 5 that don't. I mean,
We'll get there. Can I get to why the above first? Yes, we'll get there. Yeah, okay. So if you have the packet that I gave you and you go to page, hopefully it's here. If not, then we'll just figure it out.
For those of you online, it was on the link from yesterday.
Yeah, it was the first link. Okay, so you go to the back of the first page. Well, basically what they're describing there are 3 things mentioned later, not where Larry is, but another couple sentences I stopped you that start to go to the structure and how the tabernacle was built. And one was vavim, which is the plural of vav. So vavim are hooks, right? So the curtains were hung on hooks, right? Amudim are pillars. What is an amud in Hebrew? It's a column. What do we call each column of the Torah? A column, amud, right? So we have vavim that start each amud in the Torah. Right? Do you understand where it's like we're doing a little wordplay right now, but right, that every column begins with a vav, and when we construct the Mishkan, or when we were supposed to construct the Mishkan, every amud had a vav. Right? Well, had a hook, right? And this is actually, if you look, that next thing is a visual representation. So what he's suggesting here, which actually I think is really beautiful, right, is that the Torah is a physical manifestation of the idea of we are building our Mishkan, we're building holy spaces when we read and bring out and write a Sefer Torah. It's a beautiful thing, right? Because that's why the Vav. So then he gets in, and you can read this on your own, which was originally about 600 years ago, the idea of a Vav Torah started about 800 years ago, but it was originally denigrated by leading rabbis. And they thought it was awful that they did this because it forced a sofer into a very specific way, and it didn't bring, like my reading on it, and you can read it later, right? They actually say it's like disgusting and stuff, right? That you don't let a sofer who is an artist sort of do their art. Right, because you have to be, every letter has to be in a specific way, and it doesn't allow for individual creativity.
The things I remember specifically were that first he's kind of showing off, which they don't like, the particular.
Right, showing off that I'm able to do their, like, right, like this, he's able to think ahead and right.
And then the other thing they didn't like, which we have completely normalized now, is you have to have certain letters that are stretched out to make it really work,
Right.
and they didn't like that.
They didn't, right, they wanted every letter to be its normal size. Beautiful, but it's normal size, right? Now, for us, it's normal to have these stretched out because, right, we have to have each column that begins with a vav. So sometimes we have to elongate things or do other things. So it's really interesting that it evolved to the point that now really he starts quoting the 1800s where it became more standard practice. And that's now the Torah, right? If anyone writes a Sefer Torah, it's only a Vav Torah that we write. So it's interesting. Yeah.
If I didn't misunderstand what you said before, you said each vav at the beginning of the column starts a sentence, or is it just
No.
happen to be a word?
A word
It's just
doesn't
a
have
word
to
in
start
the middle of a
a
sentence.
doesn't have to start
Okay.
a sentence.
I
Yeah.
didn't think it was the first.
Just quickly, if you look at the back page of what I sent in, I'm not sure you guys don't have this online, so you'll just have to listen. There are 5 times in the Torah, in a Vav Torah, that is not begin with a Vav. And this chart at the top tells you the five. Obviously, the opening word of the Torah is Bereshit, in the beginning, creation, right? That is not above, that is a bet, right? So that's number one. So we all know that that's number one. But then, of course, guess what? Everybody disagrees on the rest. They are all actually, if you put them all together, it spells out B'yah Shemo, which is a quote from a verse in Psalms in Tehillim, which is, in God, his name is heard. B'yah, in God, Yah is the shortest name of God, Shmo, that is his name or God's name or God's name is heard. So it's interesting, like the Sofars are playing on that. Regardless, these are the other ones. You can see there's Ashkenazic tradition, Sephardic, Mizrahi, Italian, and Taimani is Yemenite. Right? So they disagree on most of the other places where, right, one starts with a Yud and one starts with a Shin, right? Except some say Matovu, which is a famous line in Numbers, right? When Bilam goes to curse the Jewish people, right? How goodly are your tents, O Jacob. At least the Sephardic and Ashkenazic are the main. You know, like 90% of Torahs are Sephardic or Ashkenazic. Then these are the little subsections, right, where they're a little bit different. So that's it. Do you have a specific question, or that's what you wanted to
That's
know?
what, yeah. I
Yeah,
didn't realize that that's what this was back
yeah.
here.
So interesting. We're gonna put any comments before we put it aside and do 20 minutes or so on cherubs. Moving. Okay, that's interesting. I'm always interested in Safrut and scribal arts. Yes, Ivan.
Did some of these commentators are saying that the construction of the Mishkan echo the creation of the world in the first 7 days.
Yes.
That it's the priestly class that is directing and orchestrating the building of this Mishkan. And of course, it's the author that in the documentary Hypothesis is doing creation, the first part of Genesis.
Yeah, but here we go.
It has to do with the how to create a harmonious.
Yeah, I will give you two things, and this is from the JPS commentary from Nachum Sarna. Number one, the tabernacle, the Mishkan follows a celestial blueprint. A prominent characteristic of this narrative in both its parts is the repeated reference to divinely given instruction and celestial patterns for the terrestrial edifice and for its contents. Such a conception of a sanctuary is not unknown elsewhere in the ancient world. It's attested to as early as 2200 BCE in the narration of a building project by a Sumerian king. It also occurs in the Egyptian text. This idea of divine inspiration, initiation, and specification generally communicates the deity's sanction and acceptance of sacred culture. The tabernacle is tied to creation. The series of instructions for the components of the Mishkan is made up into 7 subsections. How many days of creation were there? 7, each of which is introduced by the formula, and the Lord spoke. And how was the world created? By God speaking. 6 of them deal with creative actions, and the 7th features the Shabbat laws. And in Bereshit, 6 days were created, and the 7th day was Shabbat. So that's just just an inkling of the parallels between that, and you see. So it's both, even just how it's the words that are used for it, and the 7 structure, with the 7th being Shabbat. So there's definitely a whole creation connection to this. Okay, cherubs. All right. We got 2 handouts, just because you need it, okay? Okay, there you go. 1. Okay, we're gonna talk about these cherubs now for a little
These two, I
bit.
did look at it.
If you were looking online, this is the other 2 articles. What kind of creatures are the cherubim? And the cherubim, their role on the ark in the Holy of Holies. Okay, let's just go back for 1 second and review from
That's the last article.
there's two.
It's two different things.
There should be plenty of copies, you just have to find them, there are two. One of them has a picture of what looks like a Torah crown on the top, and one of them has like an abstract picture. That's how you can tell the difference. Okay,
That was
You don't have-
yeah, there are two cherubim flapping their wings, I just said it's abstract. Yes. I mean, it's called the proof. Okay, just to go back and review, what do we know about the cherubs just from the shot, from what we read here?
Face each other over the cover and.
They face each other on this is over the cover of the Aron, and they have wings
They're spread out over.
that are spread out and shield the cover. They confront each other, their faces are toward the cover. Actually, right? So it doesn't say they're toward each other.
Yeah,
Or actually it says they confront each other, their faces are toward the cover, so it's unclear.
you could think of it as they face each other, but they're looking down at the cover.
Right, it's unclear though, exactly. Right, they're made of gold, right?
Oh,
Okay, anything else? Or that's what we know so far?
What were the other?
Well, that's a good question. They weren't, well,
There's an Akkadian word referred to in the article.
Yeah.
That's similar.
yeah, so let's just go through what we, like, before we go through, what do you think they are? Have you seen the image? So actually, interesting in both of these articles, they don't actually do like the classic Jewish image of the Ark of the Covenant, right? Maybe you saw it on Raiders of the Lost Ark or something, right? What, right? Babies, is that what you said?
Yeah, they're almost like babies.
Almost like babies, right? Right? Some people say that. Some rabbis even say that.
Somebody
Yeah.
explains Western European art.
Right? Explains Western European art of angels, right?
The,
Looking like
the
young
author of the
children.
piece does a fairly decent job of leading off with that to dismiss it.
Yes. Yeah. All right. Any other things? Yeah,
Alter
Cupid on Valentine's Day. Yeah.
Alter says that they resemble Sphinx, the Sphinx.
Yeah. So I was going to say that, right?
Oh.
Right? What is a sphinx?
That you don't know.
It's a lion body with a human head.
Right? Lion body, human head. Do they have wings also or not? I don't know.
Sometimes yes, sometimes no.
Sometimes yes, sometimes no. So, right, so a sphinx is a hybrid creation, right? That is part human, part animal, and it's unclear whether it's multiple animals or not. Right?
At least sometimes it's a lion, but sometimes it could be something else.
Right. Yeah, right. It could very well be that. Right? Probably makes sense again if we're talking about Egyptian influence, right? And sphinxes, at least we know, when I think of a sphinx, it is part of a holy site or guarding a holy site, right?
Generally, yeah.
Generally, and that thing that I showed you looked like a cat, right? That was on top of an Aron, right? So it definitely could be. All right, let's go to, all right, I'm gonna go in the one that has the Torah crown on the top. Right. By the way, like the Torah crown, like the lions facing each other is an interesting similarity, right? Definitely not the same. There are no wings, right? But it's interesting. I never really thought about the lions facing each other, that it does have some sort of connection to the cherubs and the Aron Kodesh, right? Okay, let's read through the various versions. We're on page 3 of the one. Someone want to read aloud some of the various potentials of what a cherub is? Another reader?
Mefarshim traditional commentators on Exodus 25:18 offer a number of possible interpretations of the term as reflected in this survey. Babies, Rashi endorses the position of the Talmud that they have children's faces. A couple, Rav Bachya ben Asher and Rav Moshe Al-Shik, offering a modified version of Rav Katina's statement, suggest that one was male and one was female. Rav Katina doesn't actually say this, but it is possible to read his statement this way. Symbol of procreation. Al-Shik adds that the meaning of this symbol is related to the mitzvah to procreate. Frightening form. Ibn Ezra suggests that the word Keruv just means form. And says that the Torah does not tell us here what the form is, other than they have wings. However, he notes that he explained the meaning in his gloss to Genesis 3:24, which describes Kruvim that were placed outside the Garden of Eden to block the path. Ibn Ezra says there that the Kruvim were frightening images.
We'll pause here, right? So, well, we didn't say this. We have heard the term cherub before, one previous time at the end of the episode of the Garden of Eden. When Adam and Eve are expelled, God places Kruvim as the patrol guards,
They're protecting the tree of life, right?
protecting the tree of life, right? Keeping Adam and Eve away and out of the garden. Right? So I don't know if that is such a positive, I don't know if that's such a positive thing. What?
Are they always a couple?
Kruvim? That's a good question. I think so.
Good question, yeah.
I think it's always multiple.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a good question. I have to look it
Is
up.
it only two?
That's a good question also. Yeah. Yeah, now you're gonna make me look at 324, but keep going.
Holy beasts of the divine throne, tying the imagery in with a different biblical account. Rabbi Yosef Bechor Shor says that Ark is the divine throne, and the divine throne and the Kruvim are the holy beasts referenced in Yehezkel. As will be seen later, he has anticipated modern scholarship here.
Okay, just to pause, in the commentary in our 8th time, if you want to look, if you want to keep a finger there and go to page 23, or I can just tell you, but I'll just tell you, in the commentary here, it says, the Hebrew word kruvim is a cognate of the Akkadian word. Again, Akkadian was older, but from the same time period in the ancient Near East. Kuribu, which was meant a guardian demon.
Oh,
Right, which sounds more like at least what we talked about for protecting the Garden of Eden. They are described in detail in the first chapter of Ezekiel as composite beings with lions' bodies, eagles' wings, and human heads. Sounds a lot like a sphinx.
Mhm.
Interesting, right?
But this was a dream of Ezekiel, right?
Okay, it was a dream of Ezekiel, yeah.
So that,
We'll take it for what it's worth. Yeah.
Apparently quite a bit.
Yeah. Okay, keep going. So, right, so far we've had babies, we've had a husband and wife, right? We've had a symbol of procreation, we've had some horrifying thing, right? And we've had this sort of composite sphinx-like thing, like a protecting guard, like a guard. Okay, keep going.
Birds, Rashbam and Chizkuni both suggest that a keruv is a bird, presumably because they are depicted with wings.
And as I said before, again, like I won't show you the picture, but trust me, right? That Ramses always had sort of in his official stuff, and it's actually, I think in this book, above Ramses, there was a circle, which was the sun. And the sun was covered with two falcons facing each other with their wings covering part of the sun. So that goes
Also,
to this idea of birds. Oh,
Figure
someone-
10 on the penultimate page also depicts that, although it's hard to see it. At least that's what it says it depicts.
Because we got one on Leo, so I have to.
Oh, get your Aaliyah. Okay, keep going.
All right, angels. On the total opposite spectrum, Rabbi ben Asher says they are angels. This interpretation of Keruv associates them with another group of winged angels, the Seraphim mentioned in Isaiah 6. Most biblical angels do not have wings. Moreover, Rabbi suggests that the meaning of the symbolism is to remind the Israelites of the second most important principle in Judaism, the existence of angels. According to him, angels make prophecy possible. Without prophecy, there could be no Torah. The reason there are two, he suggests, is so that the viewer not mistake the statue for an image of God.
that's a little.
Yeah.
I think we can make a case for for that not being true.
I think one of the realities of there being so many different possible interpretations is we just don't know, do we?
Don't know. Yeah, and by,
That's always true in the Talmud when they don't give you.
Yeah, or in this case, after the
yeah, and by
Talmud.
the, by the way, if we, again, like what I want to do next at some point is like actually look at the pictures, because they're all really interesting pictures here. If we don't get to it, many of the Egyptian pharaohs' thrones on the sides of the, not above the, but the sides of the thrones had bird wings. Like coming out of the sides of the, if you can imagine like a grand throne, there were wings that were sort of coming out and protecting, or like around.
Yeah, there's a picture of Tutankhamun's golden throne.
Yeah, I think it was maybe King Tut's. Yeah.
And we have a seat for the clergy.
Yeah, not exactly the same. Yeah,
So
Joan?
when we renovate, we should put wings on it? No.
That's really okay. Joan? Yeah.
They're quite the same thing, but at the art museum, there are a number of Buddhist and other temple guardians. So they've got pairs of lions and strong men, and some of them may be also composite to it.
Yes.
Probably.
Like they, in Asia, they have the fu lions, they have the male and the female. The male has his foot on an orb and the female has her foot on a cub, also guardians.
Yeah. Right.
But
similar
but
concept.
I sort of wonder, how does this square with you shall not have a graven image of a creature?
Yep. Right. And that's this thing that the rabbis are grappling with,
Yeah.
right? Which we'll get to. I think that's actually gets to these last two where they're like totally taking it out of that. So David, read the last two.
So justice and mercy. Rab Chaim Paltiel suggests that the two statues represent the two attributes of God, mercy and justice.
Right. So now it's not even an animal, a person, an angel, a God, or whatever. It's a concept. Right? Okay.
And my personal favorite, because it's so rabbis. Asher believes they represent two study partners in a big midrash, having a give and take about
Of
Torah.
course, it probably didn't exist for another 1,500 years or
Right,
something.
but let's not have that.
If you think about justice and mercy, right, you can think about, I'm forgetting the name of the famous statue of the woman, right, holding the scales and right. Right, with
Yeah.
the sword.
Blind justice, yeah.
Line job, right? But you can imagine like something like that, like it's an interesting idea, right? I want to, like, I forgot something a while ago. By the way, Ivan, this is his Shabbat creation thing. Ziggurats, which are probably older than the Mishkan. I'm not sure, I didn't check,
They are.
right? They are 7 layered. If you actually count the layer, there's like all these sevens and there are all these sevens in holy sites throughout the ancient Near East. So there's another 7. What? Egypt, I don't know about pyramids, but I know ziggurats. But yeah, Ivan, did you want to say something? And then I want to look at some of the pictures and get your reactions. Obviously, this was just collected and they are winged things or whatever, but Ivan, yeah?
Yeah, but isn't the essence though that God is sitting on this throne protected by these creatures? And this
Yes.
is where
We didn't get there.
This is where Moses goes to speak to God.
Yes, so, yeah, I didn't say that, so.
For God.
Thank you. Yeah, so, right, so one of the ideas, although I'm not sure it exactly says it, is that, right, the wings of the Cheruvim, I'm not going to translate them because I'm not sure what, the wings of the Cheruvim, which are above the ark cover, right, that they form a physical throne for Shekhinah, for God's presence. That is where God dwells in our world. So yeah, thank you. Yeah, I want to say like, so the physical idea of the wings, they somehow create a place where God can sit, if God sits. Yeah, or at least an idea like the emanation of God is in that space. Okay, let's look at some pictures. So we'll make our way first through the first one that we've been looking at. Right, these are these sort of guardian demons. So throughout ancient Near East, there are guardian demons outside of things, right? Like Sphinx also, probably. Right, so that's some of these pictures.
Interesting that the crown is bigger than the Torah.
Yeah, yeah. So if we go further, we're on page like 4 or 5, right? You can see a lot of these are Greek. Right? There are a lot of winged things, Poseidon riding a, winged thing, right? Other Phoenician winged things, right? Similar to Sphinx, actually, right? I think, but maybe that's a bull, a bird, and a human, it looks like. It's sort of hard to tell. Right? I didn't read it to actually see what it says. So, right. So again, similar, right? Winged chariots, right? So winged things, right? With noble gods, whatever. Comments, thoughts? Anything sort of jump out at you if you sort of flip through? All right, here's the throne on the,
Not
there
sure.
are no page numbers, but figure 9, and sort of hard to see because it's really dark. There are wings on the throne. Right, figure 8, right, somebody's riding or sitting on top of a winged thing. If you look at figure 11, there's like a person seated that the wings of, right, that they're sort of encircling, protecting,
And he's very.
almost like curtains. That person is very small, right? I don't know.
He could be sitting on top of a lotus block.
Sitting on top of, right, so I don't know if that's a real person, if it's a child ruler, who knows? Yeah,
This 9th, 10th century, you're talking about BCE?
I think so. I would think
Because it
so.
doesn't say that.
I would think so. Samaria. I don't know.
Right, since it says 10th to 9th, it probably is
Yeah,
BCE,
yeah.
because it would say
It
9th.
doesn't say that.
Yeah. And then if you switch to the other one. So starting on page 3, there are these different images. Again, human head, animal body. Right. By the way, this is a Jewish conception, right? If you look, it's Hebrew, right? Zeh HaKruvim.
Yeah,
It looks like children with wings
Right.
on dolphins' bodies with feet.
Right, so this is the winged human being. Yeah. We're on page 3 of the other pimp. Figure 1, British Museum.
figure 1 is a little bit like Yehezkel because there also seem to be wings folded over the front of the body.
Yeah, yeah,
Although the feet don't merge into one.
right. 2 is, if you look,
Those look like doves.
yeah, figure 2 is birds, right? Interesting. And this is an Aron that's more like our Aron, by the way, right? Not like the ancient, chest. This is more like our Torah closet, right? Or cabinet. It's correct. We don't because,
It's not the,
but also because it's not portable. We're not schlepping the ark anywhere. We have one ark.
Somewhere.
We have one that can be carried. Actually, someone's putting wheels on it this week. Because I want to be able to move. We have a little ark.
Outdoor one, the wooden.
And but those are not mobile. Yeah, right? So it used to be that the ark was, so if I'm remembering correctly, and maybe Rabbi Haas knows better than me if you're still online. Original ancient synagogues had a niche. They had where the ark is today, they had like it was indented, right? There was a space. And then there was actually a ark which was brought out
Right.
to the people, right? So closer to the more ancient way that there was just like a space carved into the wall where a ark was then carried forward. Does that sound right?
Correct.
right.
but the Muslims.
Thanks, Peter.
In Spain, they have the niches
And Spain, right, so, yeah, so like, again, I just want to say like, so the idea of our version of an ark is, I won't say new, but not the original conception in ancient synagogues. Yeah. They were even portable in an actual building. Right here, we don't have, I mean, don't need a building, this is it, yeah. Right, or we don't need poles, what?
In the Midbar, it was full.
Oh, in the midbar, and then after the midbar, right, they would bring the Aron HaKodesh when they did military actions. Yeah, because it would bring them luck, I don't know, Hashem was with them in their,
Elohim.
yeah, God was with them in their battles. It actually got lost a few times. When they lost, the Philistines took it a few times, if you remember.
Yep.
Yeah, and then we got it
With
back.
bad luck when they did.
Right, I meant, right, the things didn't go well for them, yeah, they were cursed when they took it, yeah.
One seems like it's really old.
Bigger one? Yeah,
Yeah, it's so simple.
yeah, I didn't read through the actual, sorry, I didn't have time to read all this yet, yeah. All right, well, just keep going through quickly, again, these are those demon, or not demon, but winged things, yeah. It's a different ancient winged things. Right, if you look at figure 6, right, they seem to be sitting on one, or that, again, this may be the base of a throne, I think. Right, and then if you go to the back page. He does a whole thing comparing Leonardo da Vinci's famous drawing, to wings to wings, but I'm not gonna go there. Yeah. But you can see these different conceptions. So really what I wanted to do was show you, we don't know what cherubim are, cherubs are. There's a lot of interesting ideas and yeah, I'm open to what you think they are.
The word keruvim, is that the same root as?
It is not the same.
It's
That's
not
what
the
the
same.
kuf. This is a kaf
I just
and not,
checking, just checking.
yeah, it's not karo.
Sometimes there is some connection between.
It could be, yeah.
Based on the sounds. rather
It
than-
could be, because you got right, the sounds, but no, yeah, we don't really talk about that usually.
I
Yeah,
mean, he tries to make an argument that they have to be some kind of upright quasi-human figure with wings.
yeah,
Because the argument is that's the only thing that really makes sense. It can't be a four-legged thing with all 4 feet on the ground, although even in the other article where they show the lions with the crown, it's not like the lions are actually not more or less upright. I guess if you're doing a fanciful lion with parts that lions don't have, why not have it upright?
yeah.
Which kind of leaves us with his argument may be a reasonably good argument, but it still boils down to we don't know.
Here, I'll give you the closing from this book. Many scholars today believe the cherubs were winged sphinxes, right? Which we talked about. However, the fact that the cherubs in the temple had a wide span that equaled their height indicates that the cherubs may have been winged human beings. Okay, and then I'll jump to the end. In contrast to use of winged creatures in the ancient Near East to surround gods, people, or objects, the Torah's cherubim face each other with nothing between them. The transcendental God cannot be represented by an object, and the Torah explicitly prohibits this. The use of cherubim to frame an empty space is an innovation, reflecting the extent of the Torah's aversion to any physical depiction of a deity.
You're-
All right, with that, Shabbat Shalom. I hope you have an appetite.
Hello.